What is going on, everyone? My name is Spencer, and welcome to the Character Forge. This is a show based on how to create characters for D&D, how to create characters that are interesting, thematic, have personality to them, not just something that is a min-max, not just something that does the most damage, but something that actually means something. And I go through builds on how to do stuff like this. Once again, I'm starting a Patreon up top here. If you want to go to that link, all these characters are available for you there. You can download all the PDFs of every single level through 1 through 20, so all the work is done for you. Works great for people who are just getting into D&D, or if you want to see the build that I made step by step. And also has a whole layout, the same layout that I use for my character creation that I go through. So, why don't we get started on this build? Today we are going over the Knight of Solamnia. This is going to be a build that came out in, it's a feature in a background that came out in Dragonlance. It's the newest book, that is. So if you don't have that book, you can also do this build without going Knight of Solamnia. It's just you're not going to have the same kind of features. So totally fine if you don't have it. But once again, the PDFs, if you do download them from up here, you will actually have access to all these attributes and everything that you can see. So what is the Knight of Solamnia? So Solamnia is a new faction slash place. Well, not really new, but it's new to Dragonlance and new to D&D that's playable now. These are going to be holy knights. They have a crest of a bird on their chest. They have a sort of hierarchy. You start off as a squire, you work your way up through the crown, and then a sword, and then the Knight of the Rose, etc., and you get abilities based upon what you're doing with these. This is going to be primarily a tank support, and going to be very focused on doing things like supporting your allies through taunting enemies, fearing enemies, and giving allies temporary HP. The strengths of it, of course, are there is a ton of shields and there are a ton of ways to protect these allies. It's going to be a little bit, the difficulty is going to be medium to medium hard, because we're going to be going paladin, and we're going to be having to be very aware of the positioning of ourselves and the positioning of the enemies and our allies. And the weaknesses of this are going to be that maneuvers, I take a 3 dip into fighter, you don't have to, but maneuvers for fighters are not very strong. They can be a little bit weak. They're pretty good in the beginning of the game, but maneuvers and moving around the battlefield is not quite as strong as it was in, let's say, like 3rd edition or something. 5th edition has a lot of ways to deal with people running past opportunity attacks and such like that. And then another weakness is going to be that temporary HP is not a stackable buff. So if you give someone 5 temporary HP and then you give them 4 temporary HP, they have to choose one or the other to take. And of course they're going to choose the 5, so the 4 does nothing. You can't stack it, it's just you take whatever one is the highest value and you keep that one. So you can't really keep stacking shields on top of people. If you want to make a playstyle that's a little bit easier, you can just go pure fighter instead and just go with battle master and maneuvers. And the build is going to be a lot more just straightforward, just swinging, being a meat shield, but you're not going to have a lot of those taunts and a lot of those. You're not going to have quite as many ways to taunt and deal with enemies as you would with going with paladin, or ways to support your team. The race we're going to be going with on this build is going to actually be Kender. I'm streaming. Sorry about that. You're going to be going Kender, which is also in Dragonlance. And Kender is going to give you a free taunt. It's going to give you, based upon your proficiency bonus, you can taunt that many times per long rest. It's going to be based upon you can choose charisma, intelligence, or wisdom. We are going to be a charisma-based class because we are going paladin. So this is going to be a great way to taunt your enemies without using spell slots. Not only that, but it's going to have a 60-foot range, which is pretty awesome. So you're going to be able to taunt enemies from all the way across the battlefield, and they're going to have to run all the way over to you if they really want to be able to hit anything. Otherwise, they're going to have disadvantage on going against anything else. The other option you can also go is Variant Human. Variant Human is going to allow you to get that extra feat starting at level 1, and it's going to allow you to have that sort of knighthood immediately. This, for role-playing purposes and for the sake of balance, I would say that this is probably not going to be allowed by your DM, and if it is, that's fine. You can go Variant Human. You won't have that taunt. You'll have to use spell slots to taunt instead, which is fine. We can do that. But starting off level 1 with it as a Knight of the Rose is just it's a little bit it's a little bit like roleplay broken because you're a level 1 knight. How are you going to be how are you already going to be a Knight of the Rose at level 1, you know? So there is that sort of issue to have to deal with as well. But if your DM allows it, sure, you can be a knight level 1. So how do we go about this? The first thing you're going to have to do when you're building your character is the background is going to be most important, because you have to choose the Knight of Solamnia as your background. This is a new background in Dragonlance, which is completely broken. And I think they're probably going to fix it or change it soon, because my gosh, it is so strong. Has a Kender ever stayed out of jail long enough to rise up through the nights? You know, they are sort of adventure-seeking little rascals that they are, so that's a very good question. Kenders rising up through the ranks of knighthood probably is a very rare scenario. So variant human might make a little more sense as well going through that. But yeah, you know, Kenders, I'm sure a couple of them are calm enough to achieve knighthood. So the description, yeah, we're going to go background, Knight of Solamnia. That is going to give us a language, which of course, one of the languages that you should choose of your origin should be Solamnic, just because you should be coming from the area of Solamnia. So you should know Solamnic. And then the other languages are kind of just up to you. You could choose Elvish, Dwarvish, whatever else. Squire of Solamnia, we immediately start with that feat. And if you don't know what that feat does, it is, in my opinion, one of the most broken feats in the game. Especially having it at level 1. You can use it based upon your proficiency bonus, so you start off with 2 uses of it, and you get to re-roll an attack dice. Let's say you roll a 10, and you're like, no, that's not enough to hit. Before you know if it hits or not, you can actually just re-roll that attack dice, and let's say you get a 17 now, you hit. You also get to do 1d8 extra damage on that attack. Let's say, worst case scenario, you roll that d10, you re-roll it, and you get a 7 this time. You're like, oh, shoot, I just wasted it. Nope. Because Knight of Solamnia says when you use this feat and you don't hit, you get to actually keep that use of that ability. So you are just able to roll with advantage basically all the time. And when you hit, you do an extra 1d8 of damage. This is also good for rogues. You don't necessarily have to be a tank or a knight doing this. Squire of Solamnia would work great with rogues because you're getting that advantage, that sneak attack right away. But we're going for a tank build for this. And you can see why this is kind of a broken ability. It's level 1. You get 2 uses of rolling for advantage whenever you want. It's only used when you hit and you do 1 extra d8 of damage, and then they reset based upon your rest. And of course, you get more uses as you go along. Pretty awesome. If you go variant human now, you also get to choose a feat. And since you can choose a feat, you can immediately choose Knight of the Rose. And if you wanted to, and if your DM allows you to, like I said, this level 1 perk is insane. It gives you 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your spellcasting modifier as a temporary shield to any ally within 30 feet of you as a bonus action. So you can just give out shields, really high power temp shields. That's like double HP at level 1. It's crazy. So this is a really, really good way to support classes. And at level 1, like I said, this is just an extremely strong shield. But as I said, probably want to go Kender for this just because you want that taunt, not using your spell slots. You thematically don't think you really should reach knighthood until level 4. So we're kind of going with that. For point buy, we're going to go, our main stat is actually going to be charisma. We're going to be a charisma based tank. Constitution is going to be a close second, followed by strength as your third, with dex, int, and wisdom all kind of being dump stats. I would keep wisdom a little bit higher because those are a little bit better for saving throws than things like int or dex. Dex is going to be damage-based saving throws, which, I mean, whatever. We're meant to take damage. So charisma should be your highest stat. And starting off at level 1, you should have at least 16 or 17 charisma to start. We are going to start off actually going fighter and not going paladin first. The reason why is because we want those strength and those constitution saving throws, especially constitution, because we want to make sure we can maintain our concentration on some of these awesome paladin spells later on. Wisdom and charisma are good for avoiding things like charm effects, but it's not really that necessary, especially because in our race we have Kender Aptitude. We get Fearless, sorry, not Kender Aptitude. We get Fearless, which lets you have advantage on all saving throws to avoid frightened condition. So we already kind of have a way to avoid being frightened. Now, for the feats, I'll kind of just go through this section by section here. We're going fighter first. Level 1, I would recommend just getting defense as your fighting style. You get that +1 to AC, so you're already a big tanky boy. Sounds like a thick boy. Oh yeah. This class is going to be super beefy, lots of HP, lots of AC, and is going to just be taunting enemies across the battlefield, whereas shielding your allies the whole time. Also, you get a mount, which is awesome because we get to be a paladin. So you get that steed, you get to ride around with your lance, stabbing enemies as you charge through, rooting on, making your allies charge along with you, inspiring them, and all that kind of stuff. This is really sort of a general of the battlefield sort of build. Cool. So we are going to be going Squire of Solamnia, level 1 as our background, Knight of Solamnia. Level 2, not level 2, the second feat you get, whether you go variant human or after you hit level 4, we're going to choose Knight of the Rose. Now we're taking 1 point in fighter just for those saving throws and such, and then we're going straight 5 levels, at least 4 or 5 levels into paladin, because you want that second feat and you want to get your extra attack right away. So second one you're going to be getting is going to be Knight of the Rose. This is going to give you your Knight of the Rose ability, which is going to be, I have it in here. It's going to be that sort of rally ability. I need to click on it so I can find it here. Knight of the Rose. My mouse is wigging out on me. There it is, Knight of the Rose. So you're the Order of the Rose, which is considered to be mostly like a politician of sorts. You're not really a person on the battlefield. You spent your time on the battlefield. Now you're more of a tactician. You're more of a charisma-based sort of knight. And so that works perfectly with what we're going for. Charisma and wisdom, but our wisdom isn't the highest. So we're just a good speaker. So you get 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your ability modifier as the bolstering rally is what it's called. A great way to shield up your allies. After that, actually, I recommend getting Inspiring Leader, because at this point we're going to be level 8 or so at least, maybe 9, because we want to make sure we can get those 3 levels into fighter so we can start getting some maneuvers, which are really fun. You don't have to go fighter, but I think that thematically it fits so well, I just had to. And then so 3 levels into fighter, you can go that 4th level for that feat. So we're going to be 4 plus 4. So we're going to be at least level 8 or 9 at this point. And you can go Inspiring Leader. And since we have a lot of levels already, Inspiring Leader is going to allow you, every time you wake up in the morning, to give some sort of inspiring speech. Think Aragorn on the last battle of Lord of the Rings or something. Like, you're giving that awesome speech to your allies, and everyone gets a temporary HP shield of like 11 or something at this point. Or 8 or 9 or whatever it is at this point. That's going to be a good almost 20% shield for everyone in your party that lasts until their next long rest or until they get damaged through it. So just think about it as a way of almost just like increasing everyone's HP by a good like 10 to 20%. Pretty cool. After that, Sentinel is going to be a good feat for us because it won't allow enemies to get past us. But it's not really necessary, because we're going to be inspiring fear in these enemies, and later on in the Paladin tree, we're going to be going Oath of Conquest. You can actually reduce the speed of anyone afraid of you to 0, so they can't get away anyways. So Sentinel is not really necessary. Warcaster is actually a pretty good one. It's going to help us maintain the concentration on our spells, and when people try to run away, when they're allowed to, we can actually cast a taunt on them, or cast an ability on them. So we can actually stop them from running away through our spells as well, which is really cool. Tough is a good one, just gives you extra HP, can't complain about that. And then stats is great too, just boosting your charisma or boosting your constitution even that much more. Those are going to be probably the best feats for this build. After we go, now I'll go ahead and go to the page here so everyone can kind of see the D&D Beyond page through my build. So we're starting off level 1 fighter. We're choosing fighting style of defense, AC bonus +1, wearing heavy armor, having a shield. You should start off with a good 19 or so AC. Pretty good, pretty beefy. You have your second wind so you can heal yourself up. And then immediately, we are going to go and add Paladin. At level 2, we get our spell casting, we get our cantrips and such. We can choose a second fighting style, which I recommend going Interception. I know that Protection is great, but truthfully, Protection and Interception are both okay for us because we're not trying to be right up on top of our allies. Pretty much everything we do is within 30 feet of our allies. So you could also go something like Dueling or whatever, whatever else you want. But I think Interception works pretty well with the build and the way thematically it works. The reason being, if you have an enemy next to you that is taunting you, or that you taunted, or is afraid of you or such, it's not going to want to attack your allies anyway. So Protection isn't going to be the best as far as like giving disadvantage to things like, area of effect or something like that. Like if you get hit by a fireball, you can't stop that hitting your ally. But what you can do is you can use interception to sort of shield your ally from some of that damage. So it's just another way of shielding allies from damage. So interception, I think, is probably your better bet in the fighting style here. We get our spell casting, we get some cantrips, and we get some first level spells. The cantrips that I would like to take are Ward of Radiance. That's a great AoE spell for this low level build, and it's a great way to sort of hit everything around you. And Toll the Dead, of course, is a great range spell. It does necrotic damage, so if you're going for that sort of Holy Warrior build, and you're dealing necrotic damage and you don't like that, you can always go Sacred Flame or something instead. Radiant damage is a great way to also do that. But those are probably the two best cantrips, I think, off of the starting tree. You could get Guidance and other things like that too. But really, we're going to be using our concentration for other things. And Guidance should be taken, things like Guidance and Lesser Restoration should really be taken by your healer. You're more of a support tank. You're not really a healer. And then the level 1 spells we're going to be getting are, we can get Compelled Duel, which is great because now we have two ways of taunting. It almost seems redundant, but you're going to have all your first level spells to be able to compel duel people to duel you, and all of your Kender taunts to be able to taunt. So you have, I think you start off with 4 taunts already at level, whatever you are, level 3. Pretty awesome. Bless is going to be great as a concentration spell as well, because Bless is going to just bolster your entire party. Same thing with Shield of Faith. It's going to give you a nice sort of AC bonus, a +2 to you or any of the allies that you want. Heroism works really well with our build. It's not the best spell in the game. You have to use your concentration for it. But every single turn, your ally has resistance to things like fears and charms. And you get to add your proficiency bonus as a shield every single turn to that ally. It could be you or it could be anyone else. So it fits really well with our build, considering we're that general with, like, supporting our allies and keeping them sort of encouraged to fight. So it fits really well. I like going with that one just to have it, but once again, we might be wanting to use our concentration on things like Shield of Faith instead. Did you tell the taunted creature that his mother smelled of elderberries? Father, yeah. Yeah, Monty Python taunts from the Kender. That sounds actually very appropriate. It sounds like the way that a Kender would taunt their enemies. And then Bardic DW, I prefer, oh yeah? Protection from Good and Evil is going to be another great choice for first level spells. This is just a great spell in general. Thunderous Smite is a great way to deal some extra damage. Same thing with Wrathful Smite. Thunderous Smite is great because you get to knock the enemy prone. And if the enemy is knocked prone directly in front of you, you would also have an advantage on these attacks, and that enemy's going to have an even harder time in getting to your allies. And then, of course, things like Divine Favor. Those are going to be some of your best first level spells. Now, after we get to level 2, we get to level 3, we get to find our Oath at level 3. I would go Oath of Conquest. This is a great tanking subclass for the Paladin, Great Oath. You get the Oath spells, of course, but what we get is Channel Divinity, Conquering Presence. Now what we do is you force each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you to make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, a creature becomes frightened of you for 1 minute. The frightened creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of his turns, ending the effects on a success. Causing fear in the enemies is a great CC. It helps you as a tank, and it also helps keep sort of your allies safe as well, especially if you're in front of all your allies. Of course, you get Guided Strike, but I don't foresee us really using Guided Strike. Our purpose isn't really to do a lot of damage with this build. Our purpose is to sit there, say, hey, you should be attacking me, come at me, and then like bolstering your AC, keeping your HP healthy, and then just stopping all of your allies from getting hit. After that, we go level 4 and we go level 5. Like I said, level 4, you want to get that Knight of the Rose ability, or the feat, that is. And once we get the Knight of the Rose feat, definitely work with your DM on this and make sure that your DM knows that you want to sort of incorporate this into your character. You are approaching knighthood. You are trying to be knighted as one of these knights of the, Knight of the Rose. So try to incorporate that with your character. If they want to do it in Solamnia, that's fine. If they want to do outside of Solamnia, maybe you're Knight of the Rose and some other ambassador in a country or something, totally leave it up to your DM, but try to work this into your character development, because this is a great way to build a knight, a sort of general on the battlefield. someone working their way up the ranks, so to speak. And then you get to choose, it's sort of also a half feat, charisma, constitution, or wisdom. We're going to choose charisma because immediately we can get our charisma up to 18. So we can already have a +4 in charisma, which is going to be great for bolstering our allies and shielding them and such. After that, we're going to take 2 points into fighter. This is where we'll take 3 points into fighter, ending on level 4. The reason why is because we get an ability score improvement, which will just kind of help you along with those feats and those ASIs, those sort of stats and everything you're going to need for this class. And then we're actually going to be going Battle Master. I feel like this is a really underrated subclass for fighters. Not a lot of people take it, but we just get more of what we're looking for here, and it just works so well. Like I said, the first thing I love to take is Rally. Rally is going to let you use your bonus action to add more shields to your allies, so you just get more uses of those shields. It's not quite as strong as Knight of the Rose, but it's still a great way to just keep adding shields to your allies. But really, we're probably using a lot of it on our goading attacks and menacing attacks. Now, these are going to be able to taunt or fear our enemies whenever you hit the creature with a weapon attack. So that creature's right in front of you, you hit with an attack, and then you can just add these on top of it as a way to sort of taunt or fear the enemies without using those spell slots or without using extra actions. So it works really well with just being able to control the battlefields. I think maneuvers are great for that. I wouldn't really focus on the things like maneuvering attack or pushing attacks and stuff like that. Positioning in 5e is just so easy to get around things that moving your allies to safety or moving enemies in or out is not really as effective as it should be. Student of War, I just choose something like smithing tools. Work on your own armor. Ability score improvement, we get that other feat. Like I said, we can go into getting something like, at this rank, Inspiring Leader is fantastic. And now you see you can spend 10 minutes bolstering your companions, and now everyone starts, every time you wake up from a rest, everyone around you should have a nice bolster of temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. And charisma modifier being our main stat, we should have a nice beefy +4 on that. You can only do it once per long rest, so you can't just keep doing it between battles or anything like that, but it's still pretty darn useful. Now after that, we reach level 5, level 4. I suggest going immediately 2 points into Paladin. That is going to give us Aura of Protection and Aura of Conquest. Basically, all the friendly creatures within 10 feet and all the monsters within 10 feet of you are affected by sort of these auras. The Aura of Conquest is whenever an enemy is frightened of you, their movement speed while they're within your aura is reduced to 0. They can't move. This is why frightening is so good. Not only being frightened of you, they have disadvantage on doing anything to you. Now they are incapable of moving. They're literally stuck in their tracks until they can break this. And at the start, I believe it's at the start of every of their turns. Let me see. And that creature takes psychic damage equal to half of your paladin level if it starts its turn there. Yeah, so at the beginning of its turn, it takes half your paladin's level damage in psychic damage just by being feared by you, which should be pretty much constant at this point. Also, wisdom saving throws are they're not one of the highest saving throws for enemies. Things like constitution and strength are usually a lot higher. So being able to taunt enemies will happen a lot, quite often. And then Aura of Protection is at level 6. That is, whenever a friendly creature within 10 feet of you must make a saving throw, they can add your charisma modifier bonus. With a minimum of +1. So yeah, our charisma modifier is going to be a +4 to their bonus. So whenever they make a saving throw and they're within 10 feet of you, they can add a +4 to any of their saving throws. Pretty awesome. It's a really good support spell. Not only that, but I believe it's at level 5 we get to have our level 2 spells. And level 2 spells with a paladin is where you're actually going to get your mount. You're going to get your, what is it called? Why can't I find it? Fine Steed, right? Well, did I not write it down here? Really? Oh, there it is. I was on the wrong page. I was like, why didn't I write it down? That's like the best thing ever. There we go. Fine Steed. So now we actually get to summon a steed. It's really cool because you can actually choose the stats of it. Something like an elk. You can choose a horse. You can choose a mastiff. I love going with the idea of like an elk. It seems like so, like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, whatever, when they have the elves fighting the orcs, or when they have the elves, riding the elks there. It seems just so awesome. And then you can take the stats of that beast, but you also get to add the intellect to up to 6 so that beast can actually understand common. So you can understand what you are saying or what others are saying. The DC save type on no sharks for mounts, sorry. I believe it's just like mastiff, horse, elk, and I think there's one more. There's not that many to choose from, but you can actually ask your DM about anything. It doesn't have to be a certain animal. It just has to be a certain like kind of CR value or a certain stat wise value. So you can make it really anything you want if you just ask your DM. The stats are the main thing. Keep it stats of something like a horse or whatever. So one of those like sort of 1/4 summons. And let's see here. He said, what is the DC saving type for the taunts and stuff? It's pretty much all going to be wisdom. So since wisdom is usually a pretty good saving type to go against, because usually, like I said, enemies don't usually have the highest wisdom. Being able to taunt with goading attack and all that, usually wisdom is always the saving throw. And your spell hit DC should be something around like 14 or something at this point. So it's not the best, not the worst. Maybe it's 15, I think, since we have that +4. But still, it's pretty good. So you're going to be able to taunt most of the time. You're going to be able to hit with it a good percentage of the time. And then once again, when they're frightened, they have to keep making that save every turn. And if they don't, they're continue to be frightened, which is great. Kinder should be riding a puppy. Yeah, you could. You are a small creature. Your mount doesn't actually have to be big. I forgot about that. Since we were choosing a small creature, you could choose a small mount. That'd be awesome, riding a little puppy around. I did want this build to have a lance. I guess technically it's a large weapon. You're a small creature. I guess you can't necessarily use a lance. So if you wanted to use a lance, you probably have to be variant human, or you could have a little makeshift lance. Maybe you could just tell your DM you want it to be a lance, but it's not 5 feet, or maybe it's a skinnier lance. I don't know. I think it's considered a large, heavy weapon, so I don't think you can use it as a kender, unfortunately. But whatever, it's fine. If you want to be more of that drive-by sort of lancing knight, choose something larger than a kender, unfortunately. Yeah, and then we also get Warding Bond, a great way to protect our allies, a great way to sort of use the concentration. Aid is also a great spell to have to bolster the resolve of your allies. And then Lesser Restoration is a great spell. I think you should always have one on your team, but it should really be given to your healer. The healer should probably be taking Lesser Restoration over you, that is. All right, so we have first, second level spells now. We're level 7. We got those auras of conquest and everything else about us. Really, this is when the build comes online. We have this aura that constantly emanates from us in a 10-foot radius that affects the feared enemies, helps our allies. We're running around the battlefield on our steed, rushing around the battlefield, helping our allies, tanking for them. As long as we're within 5 feet, we can help block those attacks for them and bolster their resolve with things like Rally or the other sort of shields we get from the Knight of the Rose and everything else. So your allies should almost constantly have temporary HP up, which is great because it's a way to just kind of keep bolstering HP, and you can actually go over the HP cap like that. If someone is healed to full, that's the only way you can get over full HP, really, is if you increase the cap of their HP or if you give them temporary HP. And this is constantly going to be giving people temporary HP. Now, really, after this, it's kind of up to personal taste. I like just going straight Paladin after this. You end up getting those better spells at I believe it's level 9. You get those 3rd level spells where you can get kind of Crusader's Mantle, Revivify if you want to start to kind of res your allies. Once again, Revivify, I feel like you should always have one in the party. If you don't, you should be taking this. Level 13, we get Death Ward and find Greater Steed, and now you can ride something like a Griffin, which is fantastic. You can be flying around the battlefield instead of running around the battlefield on a Griffin or a Pegasus or something like that. Super cool. You have to hit level 13 to get to that point. So you're going to be level 17. That's towards the end game. May or may not happen. Don't really be relying on that Find Greater Steed because that's going to be later in the levels. Really, I think stopping at level 9 is okay because we get those 3rd level spell slots, those 3rd level spells. You get another ability score improvement as well, which you can use on one of those feats or some stats if you want to increase your charisma. But after that, actually, a fun little dip, if you wanted to, is you could go Bard. You could kind of triple class this. And what you would do with the Bard is you go 3 levels in a Bard, and my favorite college to take is actually going to be the College of Glamour. The reason being is because you get the Mantle of Inspiration as a bonus action. Instead of giving temporary HP to one ally, you can give it to 4 allies. You can give them 5 temporary HP. which isn't a huge amount, especially this late in the game. But you can also let them move their whole speed anywhere they want on the battlefield. You can think of it almost like as a charge, as a general charging the battle. And then along with you, you can bring all of your allies. They can all charge with you or whatever. Just thematically, it seems so cool. I love that. You also get expertise. I would choose something like proficiency in persuasion, just because we have that great charisma. And then choosing something like persuasion and intimidation. And now we have expertise in persuasion and intimidation. For thematic sake, I like going with instrument being a horn, because you can kind of have that war horn that you blow before you go into battle. It just, everything thematically just seems to make sense here. Cool. And then we have, let's see here. Yes, thank you for the sub. I saw that. Thank you. Awesome. We have, who was it here? Is it Skits? Thank you so much. Showing the love. Okay, cool. We have Mantle of Inspiration, like I was talking about. We also get Enthralling Performance, a way to kind of charm people and everything else outside of battle. It's useful. I mean, it's really up to you if you want to take that 3 dip. There's no reason to go more into fighter. Having an extra attack, they do not stack, if you don't know this. So if you get 2 5th level extra attacks, it does nothing. So that next level is going to do nothing. 6th level is going to give you another ability score improvement. Know your enemy is okay as an ability. It's really more of how much you want to play around with it with your DM. It's just kind of showing, like, if you spend enough time observing something, you can determine things about that thing. So, like, you think this guy's a big bad endgame, you can spend 1 minute observing this guy and you can say, what do you think his total class level is? And he can say, oh, his total class level, he's like a level 20. And you're like, oh, okay, he's a big beefy boy. Yeah. So know your enemy can be fun outside of combat. Inside combat, it's not really that useful. You just get mostly ability score improvements. So it's not really worth it going fighter for more than that. Your superiority dice will increase after a while too, but it goes from 1d6 to like 1d8. Not a huge difference, really. We're using it more for the taunt, more for the fear. We're not using it for that extra damage or anything on those attacks. So like I said, we're getting the expertise from this. We're getting the ability to add extra temporary hit points and let our allies just charge and move wherever they want around the battlefield without provoking opportunity attacks by going 3 points in a bard. And I think that's really helpful. I don't think you're really going to get level 17, 18, 19, 20. So don't worry about like 5th level spells. Don't even really worry about 4th level spells. I mean, you get Death Ward, which is a great 4th level spell, and you get Find Greater Steed, which is awesome. But you have to hit level 17 if you're going to go fighter with that. Otherwise, if you want to just drop fighter, level 13. So maybe if you want to just go straight paladin and forego the maneuvers just to get more spells, just drop the fighter. But really, I like being that tactician on the battlefield. It adds so much flair to the build. So this is the way I would build it, really. You would be getting, without getting any sort of ability score improvements, you're having about 14 strength, 8 dexterity, 16 constitution, 8 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 18 charisma. 18 charisma is going to be giving us the bolster of our sort of ways to support our allies. Once again, the background, we want to go Knight Solamnia. And the equipment I want to go with, I would love to go with a flail and a shield. Since we're going to be mounted and running around the battlefield, truthfully, like if you think about medieval warfare, people weren't really using long swords on the back of horses. People would use flails or lances or war picks and stuff like that. And a flail is a great weapon. It does bludgeoning damage. It's just so much more menacing having that flail that you're swinging around, while taunting your enemies and everything. So flail plus shield, I think, is the way to go. And you can talk to your DM about using a lance. It has reach. It doesn't have the heavy property. So I think it's fine. It says properties are just reach and special. So yeah, I would say that a small creature should be able to use it. It would just be a much skinnier lance, probably. Just 10 feet of reach, but lightweight, I guess, made of adamantium or something. I don't know. But yeah, lance is the way to go. So you can run by the battlefield, poking the enemies, taunting them, while still sprinting around, casting that aura around, helping all your allies, and supporting them. It's a really fun build based around sort of knowing the battlefield, being a general, being a charismatic leader, and just sort of supporting your troops. So it's just really thematically, I think that this is one of the more fun builds I built because it really has that sort of, fantasy, Lord of the Rings or whatever type vibe when you're playing with a party and you're like, charge, get him, yar, and like blowing your horn, brr, brr, like, I don't know. It's just so much fun. Let's see. So, get some aerial combat going. Yeah. Once you get that Griffin, you can get some aerial combat going if you really want to push those levels and get that 4th level spell. Is it Saturday yet or what? Oh my God, I hope. I'm waiting for the next game. It's going to be fun. This Saturday is postponed. I'm eager to for it, but this Saturday's postponed. That means you can stop by and come check out ours. I think it's supposed to be. Is it this Saturday's postponed or next Saturday? I don't know. We'll have to figure out. We'll have to post an announcement about that because we are going to be going to some sort of. I believe it's WonderCon. And like we have Renaissance fairs coming up and all that kind of stuff. So we do have one episode that's going to be postponed for the Dungeons Divided campaign. Once again, talking about Dungeons Divided campaign, we stream Saturday nights, every Saturday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you are a Amazon, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. I clicked on my stream instead. There we go. Let's go back to this. If you are on, if you have an Amazon Prime membership, you can actually subscribe for free, and it really helps support the channel. It helps get rid of all those pesky little advertisements. And you get to join our Discord, have conversations with the sort of cast, and also you get to affect the Dungeons Divided campaign. You can actually create sort of, based on your tier, you can create NPCs after you get to, I think, the third tier. You can vote on what happens, in the games. We have a lot of really cool perks that you can check out there. So make sure to subscribe. If not, just follow. We love the support from following as well. Even if you just do that, that's really helps out our channel. So thank you so much. And that is it. Also on Fridays, we have our, The Archivist, which kind of talks about our episodes, and that's going to be coming up really soon. It's really exciting. Last episode, The Archivist was able to sort of jot down some secrets, and we're going to be able to hear about those, which is tomorrow. So I'll be turning in for that. But besides that, thank you so much for watching this episode. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and all that. Join our Discord, and I will see you next time.